So most tennis players like you and me are stuck playing with off-the-shelf tennis rackets. Now there are two big problems with this. One is quality control. These major manufacturers, they simply can't keep their spec tolerances together. Most of them have a tolerance of plus or minus 7 grams. So even if you buy two of the exact same racket, there's a possibility that those frames will be 14 grams different from each other. This means that if you have to make a change in the middle of the set, you might have to make a huge adjustment in your game to get used to the change in weight. The next thing all comes down to personalization. The major manufacturers are building tennis rackets for the average player, but you've seen the average player. It doesn't exist. Different ages, genders, body types, coaching histories, we all have totally different games, and there's no reason why you should be settling for something that's just off the shelf. You don't need to be afraid of customization. It's easy. With a couple of grams, you can take your tennis racket to a completely different level and find something that really suits your game perfectly. Now, this problem with mismatched rackets is something that affects us at the recreational level, but it goes all the way up to high levels of competition. Until you have a professional customizer like Roman Prokes, who works with Djokovic, hand perfecting each of your tennis rackets to match your game perfectly and having each one completely on spec, you're gonna have to take this problem into your own hands. Now that is exactly what we're gonna be doing in this series of videos. I'm gonna be working with my close friend, Ali. She's a former professional tennis player who never took customization and the personalization of her frames into her own hands. And I think because of that, her game has suffered at that top level. So we're going to be working together. I'm going to take you through my step-by-step process in terms of finding your maximum power, getting stability and maneuverability dialed in, and making sure all of your rackets are matched perfectly.
My name is Alejandra. I'm a tennis player from Colombia, and from the years 2019 to end of 2021, I was a pro player on the Futures Tour. My biggest strength, I would say, is power. I go for keeping the ball one more time in the court and just hitting hard. Really like that.
Do you feel like you're able to execute your strengths at the pro level?
There were moments under pressure, big points, 40-30, 5-2, where just the consistency, the one more deep ball into the court was just not there. If I had to do it all over again, I think little changes, small changes would have made a big difference.
So my first step in customizing rackets is always matching them, especially if you don't know where you're about to go with these rackets or you just want something on retail spec. Doing your best to match those is going to lead to huge gains in terms of consistency across your playing sessions. So today we're going to be working with Ali's 4 Blade 98s, a roll of copper tape, and a bunch of tools to get these things dialed in. So to match your tennis rackets, let's go through everything that you're gonna need to get started. First, your tennis rackets, obviously. Today we've got 4 16x19 Blade 98s in the V7. You also are going to want a way to measure your swing weight. We are so lucky to have partnered with Briffidi for this series of videos. So Briffidi sent over their SW1 for us to take a look at. The next thing you're going to want is a scale. This is just a really crappy one from Amazon. It's supposed to be accurate to 1 gram, but I don't think it is. If you can get better, go with better, but plus minus a gram or 2 is probably going to be okay for Ali. She's not super sensitive. You also are going to want a way to measure balance point. So you can start with just a basic ruler and a thick marker, and that will be good enough. If you have a balance board, that's obviously going to be the best thing, but It's kind of a dumb thing to have to spend money on if you don't have one already. And the last thing is you want to take note of your measurements, so a pen and a notebook is always good to have. Oh my goodness, I forgot we also need some balancing tape. So yeah, we've got this copper tape from Katana Sport. The great thing about it is it's not toxic. Pretty neutral in flavor. And it's also a little bit lighter. The great thing with using slightly lighter balancing tape when it comes to matching tennis rackets is you can be more precise. Later in this video, you're going to see that the Tennis Warehouse calculator is going to give us solutions that require 0.2 of a gram in accuracy. This copper tape, every inch is 0.2 of a gram, so it makes it really easy to just measure things out to get good results. The last thing that I absolutely love about the copper tape, and honestly maybe the most attractive part of it for me, is they're on track to remove 1 ton of lead from the waste stream. That's just idiots like you and me who take the lead tape off the rackets and it ends up in the garbage. There's no reason that we need to be putting in extra lead to the waste stream when we could be putting in copper, which is, you know, antibacterial and way less toxic to most living things. I see a ton of great positives when it comes to buying copper tape over lead, which is why I've secured an affiliate link. 10% off if you use my link down below. You can use it all you want. We also get some money for every purchase, which will go great into supporting the channel, give us more long-term sustainability, create better videos, more content, higher quality, all the works. As you can see, we've painstakingly stripped all of these, took the strings out. Allie's grommets are in horrible condition, so her racket has some tubing. You want to make sure the tubing is removed as well. What we want to do here is really minimize the variables and different things that can cause weight. If you're a real pro, you'd remove all the grommets and the replacement grips, but I'm not a real pro, so not gonna do that. So here's what we want to do. Get rid of the dampener by cut out all of the strings. So once you've removed all the strings, we need to address this disgusting grip. You might want to get a tetanus shot before you handle such a hygienic disaster. No idea how Allie deals with that or plays with that. It's gross, but look, it is nice and clean underneath. Okay, and now the last thing that you want to do is mark the racket. So beforehand, I've used pieces of tape and come in and get this close up. See that? 1, 2, 3. Just help you keep track of everything. So all I do is write on a piece of tape and then tape it. And I put them all in the same place. I guess I cut these other ones so they don't look so bad. Okay, cut it before you put it on. Allie's not a paying customer, so I can do a bad job. But if you have paying customers, make sure they know what to expect from you. So the next thing, we're gonna grab our scale and start measuring the static weights. Obviously, zero it out and turn it on. I prefer to work in grams. They're better than that stupid other system that only one outdated country uses. You can't trust a country who has the fattest people in the world.
England.
So racket number 1 is coming in at 307. This is where I start to mark things down. So get a close-up shot because I wrote some funny jokes. Okay, so we've measured all 4. They were actually pretty good. 307, 308, and 305. The racket's supposed to be 305, but within 3 grams for 4 rackets, especially for Wilson, that is shocking news. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is measure the balance point. Now, if you remember, I don't have a balance board, and I don't think you really need to buy one. All you need is a pretty big ruler and a pen, and we're going to just balance it like this. Okay, so racket number 1 is coming in at 32.5 centimeters, and that is measured from the bottom of the butt cap up to the balance point. The reason why you can just use a marker is because this is a pretty flat beamed racket, so you have clearance, and that's literally all a balance board is. It's a bar that you move the racket across a ruler. So again, we got pretty close results, especially for Wilson blades. 32.5 on racket 1, 32 on the next 2 rackets, and 32.5 on the 4th racket. Now, we can't just stop here. There's more to weight and balance than simply weight and balance. We also need to know the polarization of the racket, and we're going to do that by measuring the swing weight. There are a couple of different ways that you can measure swing weight. There's manual methods at home that involve balancing the racket on the top cross, swinging it, and counting how many times it swings. I don't have the patience to set that up, the precision to measure and count the swings. I've tried doing it before. It's a bit of a pain, and I think the human error is simply too great. The next thing you can do, and this is something that we've been doing up until now, and that's have yours measured at a pro shop. We go to Peter at K8 here in Vancouver. Courtside is obviously where I've done most of my work customizing tennis rackets, but there has been a huge game changer when it comes to the accessibility of these RDC racket diagnostic centers which measure swing weight. Typically, you're going to be spending well over $1,000 into $2,000 for a Babolat RDC, the Prince All-in-One, or the Head 3-in-1. But this changes everything. It's the Briffidi SW1 coming in at $250 US. It's a 3D printed custom piece of kit that comes with its own app and takes advantage of the gyroscope in all of our phones. So like I said, you just need your iPhone. So what we're gonna do is just open up the app and we can start measuring. So you can see there's one measurement group set up already. We'll throw the racket, or we'll throw the phone into the holder, the racket as well. But I'm seriously in love with this product. It's incredibly well designed, really easy to just set up and calibrate. It seems quite accurate, gives you readings down to the 100th decimal place. It also will calculate average swing weight. So you want to take like a bunch of readings because it's not going to be super accurate every time. So you can get a rolling average after like 3 to 5 readings depending on how precise you want to be. Alright, so now we have to do some calculations to see how much lead we actually need to add. If I was only doing 2 rackets, I would probably skip this step. But since we're doing 4, I think this is going to save us a lot of time and also materials because we don't want to just burn through a bunch of lead and lead to waste. For this section, we're going to use 2 main resources thanks to the Tennis Warehouse University website. The first is the customization tool and the second is the customization worksheet. And I'm going to kind of show you 2 different ways you can go about this. One is going to be a little bit more trial and error and rely on your knowledge as a customizer, and another is going to give you a little bit more help but require a little bit more precision from you. Links will be below, of course. So here are our starting specs. I prefer to start with the 2 heaviest frames as they can be harder to match depending on how far off their balance points are. This means blades number 2 and number 3. Lucky for us, the only difference here is going to be the swing weight. That's 295 for blade number 2 and 298 for blade number 3. So I know that I can just add 1 gram at 12, which will add like 3 points. So I'll just plug that in using the customization worksheet. Now here we have everything matched for blades 1 and 2 except the static weight. So here I'll add a gram to the balance point of racket 3, which shouldn't have too much of an effect on swing weight. So now we have successfully matched rackets number 2 and number 3, which means we can move on to the next heaviest, which is racket number 1. This one will be tougher because the balance point is different. Thankfully, we've got the customization tool, which will help take a lot of the guesswork out of it. I've just plugged the specs from blade number 1 to the what I have section and the specs from blade 2 into the what I want section. Unfortunately, we've only got a partial success, so they're not exactly matched. Really, this is just because we haven't added enough weight to sufficiently shift the balance. We're just going to go with this for now, so I'll show you how to fix those partial successes later in the video. Let's move on to blade 4, where again we're going to use the customization tool continuing to use the specs from Racquets number 2 and 3 for our What I Want section. Once again, we only have a partial success. For this one, we're going to go with the 2 location solution because this gets the balance point to the same as blade number 1. So now we've got blade number 1 and blade number 4 with the same balance points. So now we have all 4 rackets with the same weight and swing weight, but blades number 1 and 4 have slightly higher balance points. So now we'll try to fix those partial successes that we were getting earlier with blades in 1 and 4 where the balance point wasn't quite right. All I'm going to do with this tool is increase the What I Want section by 1 gram in the static weight area until we get a success. I just had to add a couple of grams, so we got up to 312. That's unstrung, of course. So now blades number 1 and 4 have the same balance points as blades 2 and 3, but the static weights and the swing weights are off. This should be a pretty easy fix. So we're just inputting the data and right away success, which is really nice. Ignore the 3 location option. It looks kind of bugged out with the 0 grams added at 22.8 inches, but whatever. So now we are at 312 static, 32 centimeter balance point, and a 300 swing weight. Here's a recap of what we did, which we're going to use to check our work. You may have noticed that earlier in this video I was pretty lazy with the decimal points and rounding. So when I input the info for blade 1, I only get a partial success. Thankfully, we can use my old faithful technique of adding weight until it comes out right. It's kind of like salting to taste, but we're adding lead to taste. So luckily, blade 2 also works with the new 313 static weight, so does blade 3 and 4. So there we are, there's our solutions, and we just have to start adding our lead. The last thing that I like this copper tape for is I feel a lot better putting it under my grips. If you're running lead under your grips like I have previously in the past, you run the risk of a little bit of cross-contamination. If you're sweating through that grip, you're going to get that penetrating into the lead, and some of that I assume is mixing around, which is not the best, so copper tape goes great under the grip. With all the copper tape added, everything has come out pretty much bang on. Swing weight, static weight, and balance all look really good, and we're ready to move forward. Our next step is going to be determining Allie's maximum swing weight, seeing how heavy of a racket can she handle to help her deliver more organic and consistent power, especially in those high pressure moments that she's struggled with in the past. So stay with us as we work with Allie to try to get the most out of her rackets for her game and learn a bunch of lessons that we can use in our games along the way. Affiliate links in the description for the Katana Sport, and huge shout out to Brian at Briffidi for supplying this SW1, which has been super fun to play around with. I absolutely love that thing. Questions in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.